if you're gonna, maybe you already did that.
No, I didn't quite do that, but I did.
You did definitely. But
Yes.
I can roll with it.
Okay, I love that right there, because something's coming. We've just put ourselves. Pepper and I are now sitting in the path of oncoming beauty.
Yeah, it's gonna be a quick trip. Okay, so Contagion, Curt, when you say Contagion, Pep, when you talk about your dad, him introducing you to Ansel Adams' work, and then I think about the being awake, alert, and attuned. I think Ansel Adams was awake, alert, and attuned.
Come on,
for sure.
Right on.
And then he shares that with us. Like he could have been awake, alert, and attuned and not shared it with us, but he shared it with us.
Right.
So it's just like, and then I'm mindful, like looking at his photos, it's different than poetry. Like there are so many opportunities and facets, and it's just so incredibly rich.
Yeah.
And
but it also reminds me that this notion of attunement. I don't know what the latest data on this is, but I'm sure you all are familiar with. At some point, I don't know, somewhere in the last 10 to 15 years, the data came out about the average amount of time that people spend on the south rim of the Grand Canyon when they come, and it's like 17 minutes.
Ouch.
I mean, the average amount of time, right? So it might be a little more than that, but like how you come, like how could you leave? Like it just right? But it's a comment on how easy it is for us to not be attuned. Like I can be like just so much that I'm, again, to your point, Pep, about the amount of work that it takes for us to do that. And but also that sense of if I'm willing to stay with something long enough, that it becomes transformational. And then like you said, Amy, like I think about the vulnerability that happens in our confessional communities, or the vulnerability that happens with the three of us.
Yeah.
This sense that like we are attuning to something, and then we share it.
Yeah.
And the vulnerability of the things that we share that are artifacts of great beauty become things that transform me. And have me wanting to pay attention to things, right? That whole notion, like you said, Pep, that like Adam's work, like inspired an entire generation to want to go to these places.
Yeah.
And I think that in a lot of respects is what we do as followers of Jesus, right? We're paying attention to the things he's inviting. He's like, here, look at these photographs that I've taken of you, that I've taken of you, that I see when I look at you. And we're like, oh, wow, someone else is seeing something that I don't see. Someone else is creating something that I wouldn't ever imagine that could be created. And especially like, look, my life is just pretty black and white. Like it's not, but wow.
So are Ansel Adams paintings. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Pep, you said, not many people get to go. Not everyone gets to go to Yosemite, and I have the luxury of living in California. And I've hiked Half Dome twice. Once in my late 20s, and I did it by myself. I told very few people because I thought they'll be concerned and they'll want to go with me, and I don't want them to go. But it was like I wanted to.
That was before she wanted to be known at all, Curt. Just so you know.
Right. Thanks.
Amy, before this podcast, she had a podcast called Being Unknown, and it wasn't quite, as popular as this
catchy.
one because
didn't catch on.
The title, I think, was the problem.
So I hiked it on my own, and I was terrified. It's by far the scariest experience I've ever had. And because climbing the side of Half Dome, it's so.
And this isn't even, you're not even talking about a technical climb. You're talking about the path that people take.
Well, when you go
are you
up
talking
the
about a technical
side,
climb?
there are cables.
Right. That's what I mean. But I mean, you're not going up the rock face. You're not going up with
You're going up. I'm going to send
No,
pictures.
no. What I mean is, like, I'm just saying, like, people go up El Capitan, and they're just
You're
on.
not going up the face of Half Dome, but you're going up the side of it.
Right. I'm just saying, like, it's not even a technical climb, and it is not easy. I'm just how frightening it can be. Just to affirm that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then a friend of mine wanted to hike it. So in my late 40s, I said, okay, well, we'll hike it. And she had zero fear. And I'm like, this is fascinating to me, we'll talk about this. But just so then when I see a photo of Half Dome, which I want to have one in my home, like when I see it immediately, I have courage, I have confidence, it's a different encounter with art.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, and this whole sense that, and we're going to get to some of that about what this means about our encounter, like how we move from what we're paying attention to, how that gets translated and transferred into our embodied experience of things, which is part of why we're inviting people to look at Frank Lloyd Wright's work, because it's architectural, it's substantive, it's not just a painting or a photograph. It is a thing that you walk into, is a thing you could, but all that to say is that we see how that kind of artistic beauty creates that felt sense of courage, which is a beautiful thing.
Yep.
One of the things that Adams developed, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a certain way of developing film that allowed for previously unattainable different shades of black and gray, right? And so when you look at his photographs, I think one of the reasons why like if you look at some of his photographs that earlier photographs that don't look like they spent as much time in the dark room, they're not as compelling to me. They're like a sepia tone sort of, but when you see the stuff where he was developing these skills and that work that he did in the dark room, what came out of that, that is so much more compelling, because there's different shades of black and gray.
Well, again, I mean, we're not trying to just overly, we're not just like looking for ways to make metaphor out of everything, but there is a sense in which, we have an encounter with his work as it stands, with his photographs. But that required him to do a ton of work that in and of itself, while it's happening, is not very sexy.
Right.
It doesn't feel all that compelling in the work in the dark room. And I think about the work in our souls that often doesn't feel like work that we really want to do. And like nobody's in the dark room with him saying like, oh my gosh, that was just amazing.
that you just
right.
did.
That just was amazing.
Right.
And, or when we see these, like you can imagine that, when people might be curious about, well, how did you do that? They're curious, but like, who's going to stand with him and say, oh gosh, I knew the painting's brilliant, but I just want to tell you, like, holy cow, it just feels how much work you put into this. That's what's impressive to me. And the whole sense of how significant it is that when, beauty it's not just magical. Like it's just there. Like it takes a ton of work. And so therefore, even for us and myself, where I become so impatient with the work within my own soul, that somehow, like, why am I not the Ansel? Why am I not monolith right now?
Right.
And so, recognizing that we're practicing being in the dark room, and every now and then we bring out these canvases. We bring out the poem. It's often said, the best poets write the most poetry because most of what they write they don't like and will never read because it's not nearly as good. But part of what enables as kingfishers catch fire to come into fruition is because he's writing so many other things as well.
Right.
He's in the dark room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, thank you so much, you
So
guys.
good.
I want to end this with one rather lighthearted situation.
Yes.
And that
Do it.
is, Curt, when you asked me what I was going to say,
Yes.
Jane Seymour.
Yes.
I didn't want it to come at that point, but it came.
Can't control these things.
I
Is that
can't.
right? No, creative brilliance just happens to us. It just happens to us. We can't
Listen.
control this.
Do me a favor, you guys. Today, go out there and be fully hysterical.
I'm going to do my level best.
Do your best.
Okay.
All right. Love you guys.
All right.
Love you guys.
All right. We'll see you. Love
Bye.
you.